The warning alarms screamed through the control room of New Ganymede Mining Station. Commander Jihu ran to his console, his heart racing as the red lights flashed across every screen. Something was wrong. Very wrong. "Sir, we're picking up massive energy signatures," the young officer at the scanner station said. His voice shook. "They just appeared out of nowhere." Jihu stared at the display. 30 ships. No, 40. The numbers kept climbing. These weren't human vessels. The designs were alien, sharp and cruel-looking, like knives cutting through space. He had never seen anything like them before. "Try to make contact," Jihu ordered. "Send out a standard greeting on all frequencies." They waited. 10 seconds, 20, 30. Then the first colony went dark. "Sir, we've lost contact with Station 7, another officer reported. "All signals just stopped." Before Jihu could respond, Station 12 disappeared from the network. Then Station 4. The alien ships were moving fast, destroying everything in their path. There was no warning, no demands. Just death. "Get me Earth Defense Command," Jihu said. "Now!" 300 million kilometers away, Captain Nari sat in the command chair of the frigate Indomitable. She was drinking coffee when the emergency broadcast came through. The cup slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. "All units, this is Admiral Taeyang. We have a situation in the outer colonies. Unknown hostile forces are attacking our positions. All ships are to move to defensive formation Alpha 7 immediately." Nari's crew rushed to their stations. The ship's engines roared to life. Through the viewport, she could see other human ships doing the same, moving into formation like a school of fish sensing danger. "Captain, we're receiving distress calls from multiple colonies," her communications officer Sora said. "They're under heavy attack. The signals are... They're cutting off one by one." Nari gripped the armrests of her chair. "How many hostiles?" "We don't know yet. But it's a lot." The human fleet moved toward the outer system, but they were too late. By the time they arrived, 6 colonies were gone. Just empty stations and debris floating in space. Thousands of people dead. Then they saw the enemy. The alien fleet emerged from behind a moon. There were hundreds of ships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humans had built. Their weapons glowed with purple energy. Their shields shimmered like soap bubbles made of light. "All ships, this is Admiral Taeyang. Engage the enemy. Protect the remaining colonies." The battle began badly for humanity. The human ships fired missiles and railgun rounds, but the alien shields absorbed everything. The enemy's return fire was devastating. Purple beams cut through human ships like they were made of paper. Explosions lit up the darkness of space. Captain Nari watched 3 destroyers explode in the first minute of combat. The Indomitable shook as enemy fire hit their shields. "Return fire!" Nari shouted. "Target the lead ship." They fired everything they had. Missiles streaked toward the alien vessel. Railgun rounds followed at incredible speed, but the enemy shield held, not even a scratch. Then the alien ship fired back. The beam hit the Indomitable's port side. Alarm screamed. The ship spun wildly. "Damage report," Nari called out, holding onto her chair as the artificial gravity flickered. "Port armor is gone. We've lost 2 gun batteries. Engines at 60%. Across the fleet, the story was the same. Human ships were being destroyed faster than they could react. The aliens were simply too strong, too fast, too advanced. Commander Jihu's defense station was the next target. He watched the alien ships approach on his screen. There was no way to stop them. His station had mining lasers, not military weapons. "Evacuate everyone to the transport ships," Jihu ordered. "We have maybe 10 minutes." People ran through the corridors, grabbing what they could. Children crying. Adults shouting. It was chaos. The transport ships launched just as the alien weapons tore the station apart. Jihu was on the last ship out. He watched his home of 5 years turn into a ball of fire and twisted metal. Admiral Taeyang sat in his command center on Mars Station, watching the battle reports come in. His fleet was losing, badly. He had started with 200 ships. Now he had less than 150, and the aliens hadn't even committed their full force yet. "Admiral, we need to fall back," his tactical officer Doha said. "If we stay here, they'll destroy the entire fleet." Taeyang knew Doha was right. But retreating meant abandoning the outer colonies. It meant letting the enemy get closer to Earth. Every choice was terrible. "Order all ships to retreat to the inner system," Taeyang said quietly. "We'll make our stand at the asteroid belt." The human fleet turned and ran. The aliens pursued, destroying any ship that was too slow or too damaged. It was a fighting retreat, and many brave people died buying time for others to escape. On the Indomitable, Lieutenant Yuna worked frantically at her intelligence station. She was trying to decode the alien communications. Every species had patterns in how they talked, how they commanded their forces. If she could understand them, maybe humanity could find a weakness. "Captain, I'm getting something," Yuna said. "The aliens are broadcasting to each other. I think I can translate part of it." "What are they saying?" Nari asked. Yuna's face went pale. "They're calling us primitives. They say Earth will fall in 3 days. They're already discussing how to divide our planet among their leaders." The words hung in the air like poison. The aliens didn't see this as a war. To them it was just pest control. "They're sending a message to Earth," Sora suddenly announced. "It's coming through now." The message was simple and brutal. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Humanity would become slaves. Earth would be stripped of resources. Resistance was futile. The message ended with images of the destroyed colonies, a warning of what would happen if humans refused. Admiral Taeyang watched the message in his command center. Around him, officers stood in shocked silence. The alien force was overwhelming. Their technology was far beyond human capabilities. Every tactical analysis said the same thing. Earth could not win this fight. But Taeyang looked at the faces of his officers. He saw fear, yes, but also anger, determination. Humans had faced extinction before in their history. They had always found a way to survive. "Get me all senior commanders," Taeyang said. "We need to have a meeting, now." As the battered human fleet regrouped near Mars, the alien armada advanced slowly, confidently. They had no reason to hurry. The prey was cornered. Victory was certain, but they didn't know humans very well. They didn't understand that sometimes the most dangerous animal is the one with nothing left to lose. The war room on Mars Station was crowded. Every senior officer who could make it was there. Captain Nari stood with her arms crossed, her uniform still stained with soot from the battle. Commander Jihu was there too, having barely escaped the destruction of his station. Others filled the room, all of them exhausted, all of them afraid. Admiral Taeyang stood at the head of the table, looking at the holographic display floating above it. The display showed the alien fleet, a mass of red dots moving steadily toward Earth. The blue dots representing human forces looked pitifully small in comparison. "Let's be honest," Taeyang said. "We cannot win a direct fight. We've lost too many ships. Their technology is better than ours. If they reach Earth, it's over." The room was silent. Everyone knew he was right. "So we don't fight them directly," said Strategic Officer Doha. She stepped forward and manipulated the hologram. "We make them fight on our terms, not theirs." "How?" Captain Nari asked. "They're faster than us. Stronger than us. What terms could possibly work in our favor?" That's when Engineer Minho spoke up. He was a civilian, not military, and looked out of place among all the uniforms. But Taeyang had called him here for a reason. "The Helios Corridor," Minho said simply. Everyone turned to look at him. The Helios Corridor was famous among miners and pilots. It was a passage through the asteroid belt, about 80 kilometers long. On both sides were massive asteroids, thousands of them, packed together like a crowd. Ships could fly through the corridor, but it was narrow. Dangerous, most pilots avoided it. "Go on," Taeyang said. Minho pulled up new images on the display. "For the past 3 years, my teams have been mining asteroids in that region. We've been using demolition charges to break up the big rocks so we can harvest the minerals inside. Very powerful charges. We have thousands of them stored in various locations throughout the belt." "You want to blow up asteroids?" Commander Jihu asked. "How does that help us?" Minho smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "If the alien fleet flies through the Helios Corridor, and we detonate charges at the right time in the right sequence, we can turn the entire corridor into a death trap. The asteroids will fragment into millions of pieces, all moving at high speed. It'll be like a shotgun blast on a massive scale." Doha leaned forward, studying the display. "Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons. Plasma beams, lasers, missiles. But kinetic impacts? Rocks moving at thousands of meters per second." "Exactly," Minho said. "Their shields might stop small debris, but not building-sized chunks of asteroid. And once the chain reaction starts with asteroids colliding and fragmenting, creating more and more debris, the entire corridor becomes a meat grinder." Captain Nari saw the problem immediately. They'd never fly through there willingly. It's too obvious a choke point. That's where we come in, Taeyang said. He looked around the room at his officers. We lure them in. We make them chase us through the corridor. That's suicide, someone said. Maybe, Taeyang admitted, but it's our only chance. We stage a fighting retreat. Make it look real, bloody, desperate. We fly through the Helios corridor like we're trying to escape. They'll follow, because that's what they do. They're hunters. They finish their prey. Lieutenant Yuna, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Admiral, I've been studying their communications. The Valtru have a cultural thing about honor and dominance. When they chase an enemy, they commit completely. They see retreat as cowardice, and they punish it with total destruction. They won't leave any ships behind. They'll all enter the corridor to make sure we're all dead. Taeyang nodded. That's what I'm counting on. We get their entire fleet into the corridor. Then we close the trap. Who's going to be the bait? Jihu asked quietly. The room went silent again. Everyone understood what being bait meant. Flying through the corridor slowly enough for the aliens to catch up. Taking fire. Watching your friends die. Maybe dying yourself. I'll do it, Captain Nari said immediately. The Indomitable is already damaged. We'll look like easy prey. I'm coming too, Jihu said. You'll need more than one ship to make it convincing. My destroyer squadron will join you. Others volunteered. Within minutes, Taeyang had 24 ships willing to be bait. Most were damaged already. All were commanded by people who understood they might not survive. All right, Taeyang said. Minho, you have 48 hours to position those charges and set up the detonation system. Can you do it? Minho looked nervous, but he nodded. We'll need every mining ship in the belt. Every engineer. Every technician. But yes, we can do it. Doha, you'll coordinate the tactical side. Sensor networks, timing, backup systems. I want redundancy on top of redundancy. If one detonator fails, 10 others need to be ready. Yes, sir, Doha said. Sora, Taeyang turned to the communications officer. We need to make sure the aliens follow us. Can you craft false transmissions that make it look like we're panicking? Running scared? Sora nodded. I can make them think we're falling apart. They'll think they've already won. Yuna, keep monitoring their communications. I need to know if they suspect anything. If they change course or split their fleet, the plan fails. Understood, Admiral. Taeyang looked around the room one more time. This is it. This is our one shot. If it works, we save Earth. If it fails, we lose everything. Either way, we make them pay for every human life they've taken. The meeting ended and everyone rushed to their tasks. There was no time to waste. The alien fleet would reach the inner system in less than 70 hours. Minho and his engineering teams worked like machines. Mining ships flew through the asteroid belt, carefully placing demolition charges on thousands of rocks. Each charge was disguised to look like natural mineral deposits or equipment debris. They had to be invisible to enemy scanners. The charges were linked to a central computer network that Minho set up on a hidden station inside a hollowed-out asteroid. The computer would control the detonation sequence. It had to be perfect. Too early and the aliens wouldn't be fully in the corridor. Too late and some might escape. Doha placed sensor networks throughout the corridor, tiny devices no bigger than a fist, hidden in the asteroid shadows. They would track every alien ship, feeding data to the detonation computer in real time. Remote weapon platforms were also hidden in the field, not to fight the aliens but to add to the chaos when the trap sprung. Missiles that would launch into the debris cloud, creating more destruction, more confusion. Captain Nari spent the time preparing her crew. They did damage control drills, practiced emergency maneuvers. The Indomitable was already hurt, but Nari made sure it could still fly fast enough to stay ahead of the aliens, but slow enough to keep them interested. Commander Jihu did the same with his destroyer squadron. They practiced flying in formation through the corridor, timing their movements to avoid the worst of the asteroids while still looking desperate. Lieutenant Yuna barely slept. She listened to every alien transmission, looking for any hint of suspicion. But the Valtru were confident, arrogant. They mocked the retreating humans in their communications. They joked about who would get which piece of Earth. They never considered that the primitive creatures might have a plan. Sora prepared false transmissions, fake distress calls, panicked messages between ships, communications that painted a picture of a broken, defeated fleet with no hope left. She would broadcast these at just the right moments to keep the aliens aggressive and eager. On the second night, Taeyang stood alone in his office, looking at Earth through the window. The blue and white marble hung in the darkness, so beautiful, so fragile. Billions of people down there had no idea how close they were to extinction. He thought about his family and soul. His daughter, who wanted to be an astronaut. His son, who loved soccer. Would he ever see them again? Would they survive what was coming? A knock on the door broke his thoughts. Captain Nari entered. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. "Too much to think about," Taeyang admitted. They stood together in silence for a moment. "Sir." "About the mission," Nari said. "My crew knows the risks. We're ready. I know you are. I just wish there was another way. There isn't, and that's okay. Sometimes the only choice is to bet everything on one hand." Taeyang smiled slightly. "You sound like a gambler. My grandfather taught me poker. He always said the secret wasn't having good cards. It was making your opponent think you had bad cards when you actually had the winning hand. Let's hope you're right." As they spoke, somewhere in the outer system, the Valtru fleet continued its advance. The alien commander was pleased. The humans had fought poorly. Their technology was primitive. Their tactics were basic. Earth would fall easily, and he would be remembered as the conqueror who brought a new world into the Empire. He had no idea that he was flying straight into the greatest trap in military history. The asteroid belt was alive with activity. Mining ships moved between the rocks like bees in a hive. Engineer Minho floated in his spacesuit, checking another demolition charge. His hands were steady despite his exhaustion. He had been working for 36 hours straight. "That's the last one in Sector 7, his assistant said through the radio. "Moving to Sector 8. Good. Double-check the connections. Every single one. We can't afford failures." Minho pushed off from the asteroid and floated to his ship. Through his helmet, he could see the Helios corridor stretching out before him. It looked peaceful now. Beautiful, even. The asteroids caught the distant sunlight glittering like diamonds in the darkness. Soon it would be a graveyard. The charges were works of art in their own way. Each one was carefully calibrated to break the asteroid in a specific direction with precise force. Too weak and the fragments wouldn't have enough velocity. Too strong and they might damage the charges on neighboring asteroids, ruining the timing. "Minho, this is Doha." The voice came through his communicator. "How's the progress?" "We're on schedule, barely. Another 6 hours and we'll have everything in place. The sensor network is complete. We can track a ship the size of a coffee cup anywhere in the corridor. Let's hope we're tracking something bigger than that." Minho knew the plan depended on perfect timing. The aliens would enter the corridor at high speed, chasing the human ships. The sensor network would track their positions. When the last alien ship crossed the threshold, when the entire fleet was inside the corridor with no escape, the computer would begin the detonation sequence. The charges wouldn't all explode at once. That would be wasteful. Instead, they would detonate in waves, starting from both ends of the corridor and moving toward the middle. The aliens would be trapped in a collapsing tunnel of rock and death. On Mars Station, Strategic Officer Doha stared at multiple screens, each showing different views of the asteroid field. The sensors were working perfectly. She could see every rock, every charge, every hidden weapon platform. "Run Simulation 17 again," she told her team. The hologram displayed the battle in fast forward. Blue dots representing human ships flew through the corridor. Red dots representing alien ships followed. Then the trap activated. The red dots disappeared, consumed by the spreading cloud of debris. "Success rate?" Doha asked. 94%, a technician replied. 6% of scenarios show some aliens escaping due to unexpected maneuvering, or if they're at the very edges of the fleet. "Run it again. Adjust the detonation timing to compensate." They ran the simulation 50 times. Each time, Doha made small adjustments. She was a perfectionist, and perfection was required. If even one alien ship escaped, it could warn others. Earth would face an even bigger invasion fleet, and there wouldn't be another chance for a trap like this. Meanwhile, Captain Nari walked through the Indomitable, inspecting every section of her ship. The damage from the earlier battle had been partially repaired, but the frigate was still hurt. Scorch marks blackened the hull. Several compartments were sealed off, too damaged to use. Her crew worked quietly, each person focused on their task. They knew what was coming. They had volunteered anyway. "Captain," Sora approached her. "The false transmissions are ready. I've created a whole network of fake communications. Distress calls, damage reports, panicked coordination attempts. The aliens will think we're falling apart. Good work. When do we start broadcasting? As soon as we engage them near Jupiter. The transmissions will make it seem like our command structure is breaking down, like ships are acting independently out of fear. Nari nodded. The aliens need to believe we're beaten, desperate, running like scared animals. They'll believe it. I've studied their previous conquests. They always buy into the image of a defeated enemy. It feeds their sense of superiority. In the hangar bay, pilots were preparing their fighters. These small ships would launch during the battle, adding to the chaos, making everything look more desperate and confused. Some pilots painted messages on their fighters, names of lost friends, goodbye notes to family. They didn't expect to survive. Commander Jihu stood with his destroyer captains in a briefing room. 8 ships. That's all he had left from his original squadron of 15. The others had died in the first battle. We fly in loose formation, Jihu explained, pointing at the tactical display. We need to look disorganized, damaged. Every few minutes, one of us breaks formation like we've lost engine power, then struggles to catch up. We're selling a story, and it has to be convincing. What if they get too close? One captain asked. What if they actually destroy us before we reach the corridor? Then we die buying time. But we don't let them catch us too early. We stay just out of reach. We make them work for it. We make them angry. An angry enemy makes mistakes. The captains nodded grimly. They understood their role. They were the bait in a trap. Sometimes bait gets eaten. Lieutenant Yuna sat in her intelligence station, earphones covering her ears, listening to the alien chatter. She had gotten better at understanding their language. The Valtru spoke in harsh guttural sounds, but there were patterns. They're excited, she reported to Admiral Taiyang through a secure channel. Their commander has promised them great rewards. They see this as an easy victory. They're even arguing about who gets to lead the final assault on Earth. No signs they suspect anything? None, they're completely confident. In their last 3 invasions, the enemy always ran when defeated. They expect us to do the same. They can't imagine we'd run toward a trap instead of away from danger. Let's hope they're right about us being predictable, Taiyang said. The hours ticked by. The trap was almost complete. Every charge was in place. Every sensor was active. The detonation computer ran through its final checks. Backup systems were tested and retested. Minho finally returned to Mars Station, exhausted but satisfied. It's ready, he told Taiyang. The biggest minefield in human history. All we need now is someone stupid enough to fly into it. The Valtru will oblige, Taiyang said. They can't help themselves. The human fleet that would serve as bait gathered near Jupiter. Captain Nari's Indomitable was there. Commander Jihu's destroyers. 24 other ships, all damaged, all crewed by volunteers. They formed up in a loose, sloppy formation that made them look defeated. This is Admiral Taiyang to all bait ships. The communication came through. You know your mission. You know the risks. Humanity owes you a debt we can never repay. Fly well, fly safe, and bring those aliens to their doom. Yes, sir, Nari replied. Around her, other captains gave similar acknowledgments. The bait fleet moved into position. They powered up their engines but kept their weapons mostly offline. They needed to look weak, vulnerable, an easy target. Then they waited. The alien fleet appeared on long-range sensors moving in from the outer system. Hundreds of ships in tight formation, a hammer ready to crush the last resistance. All ships, Nari broadcast. The enemy is in sensor range. Begin Phase 1. The human ships spread out even more, making their formation look panicked. Some ships fired their thrusters randomly, as if their controls were damaged. Sora began broadcasting the false transmissions, filling the channels with fake distress calls. This is Destroyer 9, we've lost main power, need assistance. Medical emergency on Frigate 3, multiple casualties. Navigation system failing, can't maintain formation. The messages were all fake, but they sounded real. Desperate, afraid. The alien commander heard these transmissions. He smiled, satisfied. The humans were broken. This would be a massacre, not a battle. His ships accelerated, eager for the kill. They're taking the bait, Yuna reported from Mars Station. The whole fleet is moving toward your position. Copy that, Nari replied. She looked at her crew. This is it. Everyone to your stations. It's time to run like hell. The bait fleet turned and fled toward the inner system. They didn't run at full speed. That would look suspicious. Instead, they ran at about 70%, the speed of damaged ships desperately trying to escape. The aliens pursued, firing long-range weapons. Purple beams lanced through space. One human destroyer was too slow. The beams cut through its engines and it exploded. The death was real, not staged. 15 people died in that explosion. But their death served a purpose. It made the chase look more genuine. The aliens grew more excited, more confident. They were wolves chasing wounded deer. The human fleet raced toward the asteroid belt, toward the Helios corridor. Behind them, the alien fleet followed like a tidal wave of metal and fury. In his command center on Mars Station, Admiral Taeyang watched the chase unfold on his displays. Everything was going according to plan. The aliens were committed. They were angry. They were confident. They were flying straight into the trap. All forces stand by, Taeyang ordered. When they enter the corridor, we end this. The human ships reached the edge of the asteroid belt. The Helios corridor opened before them like a canyon in space. Captain Nari led the way, her Indomitable diving into the narrow passage between the massive rocks. One by one, the bait ships followed. They flew recklessly, as if too panicked to care about the asteroids. They scraped past rocks. Some took minor damage from collisions. It all added to the illusion of desperate flight. The detonation computer received the command. For exactly 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the Helios corridor exploded. The charges at both ends of the corridor detonated first. Massive asteroids fractured into thousands of pieces. Some fragments were the size of cars. Others were as big as buildings. They flew outward in every direction at incredible speeds. The alien ships at the rear of the formation never knew what hit them. A piece of rock the size of a bus, moving at 3,000 meters per second, slammed into a Valtru destroyer. The ship's shield flickered and died. The rock punched through the hull like it was paper. The destroyer broke in half, explosions blooming along its length as systems failed and reactors breached. More asteroids shattered. The fragments created a spreading cloud of death at both ends of the corridor. The aliens at the front and back of their formation died first, cut off from any escape. Captain Nari, racing ahead of the carnage in her Indomitable, felt the shockwave even through the vacuum of space. Her ship rattled as debris flew past. "Stay on course," she shouted to her helmsman. "Don't slow down. We need to clear the exit before the main sequence starts." Behind her, the aliens finally realized something was wrong. Their commander tried to order a retreat, but it was too late. The corridor was already collapsing. The second wave of detonations began. These charges were positioned along the sides of the corridor, designed to push the asteroids inward. It was like the walls were closing in. Massive rocks, some weighing millions of tons, began moving toward the center of the passage where the alien fleet was trapped. A Valtru cruiser tried to turn around. It was too big, too slow. An asteroid the size of a football stadium crushed it like a tin can. The ship's fusion reactor exploded, adding to the chaos. The explosion fractured more asteroids, creating even more deadly fragments. Target count dropping fast. Lieutenant Yuna reported from Mars Station. She was watching her sensors in awe. 317 alien ships. Now 302. Now 294. The numbers fell like rain. Commander Jihu's destroyer squadron was near the rear of the human formation. He looked back and saw hell. The corridor was filling with debris, explosions, and dying alien ships. It was terrible and beautiful at the same time. All ships emergency thrust. Jihu ordered, "Get clear of the kill zone." His destroyers pushed their engines to maximum. They needed to exit before the trap caught them too. One destroyer was too slow. A chunk of asteroid clipped its engines. The ship went spinning into a larger rock and exploded. 14 more people dead. But the rest of Jihu's squadron made it through. Inside the kill zone, the Valtru fleet was being destroyed. Their ships were designed for space combat, with shields to stop energy weapons and armor to resist missiles. But they had no defense against kinetic impacts of this scale. A battleship, the pride of the Valtru fleet, was struck by 3 asteroids in quick succession. The first hit destroyed its engines. The second cracked its hull. The third punched through to the reactor core. The battleship exploded with the force of a small nuclear weapon. The explosion shattered dozens of nearby asteroids, creating a chain reaction. More rocks broke apart. More fragments flew in every direction. The debris cloud grew thicker and more violent with each passing second. Smaller Valtru ships tried to dodge, but there was nowhere to go. The corridor was too narrow. Ships that tried to move sideways crashed into asteroids. Ships that tried to stop were crushed by the vessels behind them. Ships that kept going forward flew into the expanding debris field. The third wave is detonating now, Doha announced calmly. She was watching the tactical display, seeing the plan unfold exactly as designed. Charges in the middle section going active. These charges were the most powerful. They were positioned to create maximum fragmentation. When they exploded, they turned dozens of large asteroids into millions of smaller pieces. The debris cloud became so thick that visibility dropped to nearly zero. A Valtru destroyer captain tried desperately to navigate through the chaos. His ship's sensors were useless, overwhelmed by all the debris. He couldn't see the 10-ton rock that hit his bridge at 2,000 meters per second. The bridge exploded. The captain and his entire command crew died instantly. Captain Nari's Indomitable burst out of the far end of the corridor. She immediately turned her ship around to watch. Her crew gathered at the viewports, staring in stunned silence. The Helios corridor had become a storm of rock and metal. Flashes of light marked where alien ships exploded. Debris clouds spread like smoke. It was impossible to see individual ships anymore. There was only destruction. Sensor readings are off the scale, Sora reported. I'm detecting massive energy discharges. Multiple fusion reactor breaches. The aliens are being torn apart. Commander Jihu's destroyers joined the Indomitable on the safe side of the corridor. Together, the human bait fleet watched the result of their desperate plan. How many alien ships are left? Nari asked. Sora checked her instruments. Sensors are having trouble with all the debris, but best estimate is less than 100, and that number is dropping every second. Inside the kill zone, the Valtru commander was dying. His flagship had been hit by so many rocks that the hull looked like Swiss cheese. Half his crew was dead. Life support was failing. His shields had collapsed 10 minutes ago. He tried to send a distress signal, but there was no one to send it to. His entire fleet was dying. He could see other ships on his sensors, but they were all damaged, all struggling, all doomed. A final asteroid, this one small, barely bigger than a person, hit his flagship's reactor containment. The commander had just enough time to realize his mistake. The humans hadn't been running in fear. They had been leading him into a trap. Then his ship exploded, and he died still not understanding how the primitive species had beaten him. The chain reactions continued. Exploding ships fractured more asteroids. New debris created more collisions. The violence fed on itself, growing worse with every passing moment. Engineer Minho watched from Mars Station, his eyes wide. I knew the charges were powerful, but this is beyond what I calculated. The chain reactions are amplifying the effect. Good, Admiral Taeyang said quietly. Let none of them escape. The remote weapon platforms activated next. Hidden throughout the debris field, they launched missiles into the chaos. These missiles weren't aimed at specific targets. They didn't need to be. They just added more explosions, more destruction, more deadly fragments to the maelstrom. A group of Valtru frigates had somehow stayed together, protecting each other. They thought they might survive if they could just reach the end of the corridor. They pushed forward desperately, their crews praying to their gods for salvation. 3 missiles hit them simultaneously. The explosions broke the formation apart. Asteroids finished what the missiles started. All 5 frigates were destroyed within seconds of each other. Target count at 32, Yuna reported. 30. 27. The numbers continued to fall. Lieutenant Yuna's instruments showed her everything. Every dying ship, every explosion, every piece of debris. She had dreamed of this moment, of humanity fighting back against the invaders who had killed so many innocent people. But seeing it happen was different from imagining it. It was horrible, terrifying. Thousands of aliens were dying in that corridor. She could see their ships breaking apart, could imagine the crews inside struggling and failing to survive. But she felt no pity. They had come to enslave humanity. To destroy Earth, they had started this war. Now they were paying the price. 15 targets remaining, she announced. 12, 10. The last Valtru ships were desperately trying to turn around to flee back the way they came. But the debris was too thick at the entrance now. There was no escape in that direction either. A cruiser tried to push through the debris cloud by sheer force. It made it almost 50 meters before an asteroid the size of a house hit it broadside. The cruiser crumpled like aluminum foil. 5 targets left, Yuna said. 4, 3. Two Valtru ships collided with each other in their panic, both trying to occupy the same space. They merged into a twisted wreck that exploded seconds later. One target remaining. The final Valtru ship was a frigate, small and fast. Against all odds, it had dodged the worst of the debris. It was racing toward the exit, toward the open space where Captain Nari's fleet waited. Should we fire on it? Jihu asked over the communication channel. Wait, Taiyang ordered from Mars Station. The corridor will finish it. As if on command, a final piece of asteroid tumbling end over end intersected the frigate's path. The alien pilot saw it coming and tried to dodge. He was too late. The rock hit the frigate's engines. The ship went into an uncontrolled spin, smashing into the corridor wall. The impact destroyed the vessel completely. 0 targets, Lieutenant Yuna said softly. The alien fleet is completely destroyed. The Helios corridor slowly grew quiet. The chain reaction stopped. The explosions ended. What remained was a debris field stretching 80 kilometers. Thousands of asteroids had been shattered. Hundreds of alien ships were now just fragments mixed with the rock. Captain Nari stood on her bridge, looking at the destruction. Her hands were shaking slightly. They had done it. They had actually done it. The entire invasion force was gone. Sora, are you picking up any signals? She asked. Any survivors? 3 days after the battle, Captain Nari stood in the docking bay of Mars Station. The Indomitable was behind her, being repaired by work crews. The ship was scarred and damaged, but it had survived. So had she. Medical teams were helping wounded crew members off the ships. Engineers were assessing damage. Officers were writing reports. The station buzzed with activity, but there was something different in the air now. Hope, relief, pride. Captain Nari, a voice called. She turned to see Admiral Taiyang approaching. Walk with me. They moved through the station's corridors, passing windows that showed Earth in the distance. The blue planet looked peaceful from here. The people down there had no idea how close they had come to extinction. The final casualty count is in, Taiyang said quietly. 437 dead from the bait fleet. Another 83 died in the initial battles before the trap. Over 6,000 colonists were killed when the aliens destroyed the outer stations. Nari felt the weight of those numbers. Over 6,000 people, families, children, all gone because the Valtru had decided humanity should be slaves. But billions survived, she said. We saved Earth. We did, Taiyang agreed. And we sent a message to the galaxy. Humanity is not prey. They reached the command center. Inside, Strategic Officer Doha was working with her team, analyzing the battle data. Engineer Minho was there too, looking exhausted but satisfied. Admiral Captain, Doha greeted them. We've finished the complete analysis. Every sensor recording has been reviewed. I can confirm with absolute certainty that no Valtru ships escaped. The trap achieved 100% success. Show me, Taiyang said. Doha pulled up a holographic replay of the battle. They watched as the human ships led the aliens into the corridor. They saw the charges detonate in perfect sequence. They watched 317 alien ships die in less than 12 minutes. The timing was perfect, Minho said. Every charge detonated exactly when it should have. The chain reactions exceeded my calculations, which actually helped. The debris field was thicker and more violent than planned. Any idea why? Nari asked. The alien ships themselves. When their reactors breached, they added energy to the system. The explosions helped break up more asteroids. In a way, the aliens contributed to their own destruction. Commander Jihu entered the command center, followed by Lieutenant Yuna and Communications Officer Sora. The core team that had planned and executed the trap was together again. We've intercepted communications from Valtru space, Yuna announced. They know their fleet is gone. How did they react? Taiyang asked. Shock, disbelief. We're picking up messages between their remaining military leaders. They can't understand what happened. They're reviewing all the data they received from the fleet before it was destroyed. Sora activated a recording. They listened to translated Valtru communications. The alien voices sounded confused, frightened even. The entire invasion force. Gone? How is that possible? These were primitive creatures. What weapon did they use? We saw nothing on the scans. They used rocks, another voice said with something like awe. Simple asteroids. They turned their own star system into a weapon. The recording ended. The human officers looked at each other. They're afraid of us now, Jihu said. The hunters became the hunted. Taeyang nodded slowly. Good. Fear will keep them away better than any peace treaty. They need to understand that attacking humanity has consequences. Over the next week, more information came from Valtru space. Their military leaders were arguing. Some wanted immediate revenge. Others counseled caution. A few suggested opening diplomatic channels with humanity. But the most interesting information came from Lieutenant Yuna's intelligence network. Sir, you need to hear this, she told Taeyang one morning. She played another intercepted transmission. This one was from a Valtru military academy, where officers were being trained. The human engagement will now be taught as a primary example of tactical arrogance, the instructor's voice said. Commander Zalthos believed he was hunting primitives. He ignored basic strategic principles. He allowed his entire fleet to enter a confined space without proper reconnaissance. His cultural bias blinded him to the possibility of deception. The instructor continued. The humans demonstrated that technological superiority is not enough. They used simple tools in creative ways. They understood their own weaknesses and turned them into strengths. They studied our culture and exploited our predictability. This is how a weaker force defeats a stronger one. Yuna stopped the recording. They're studying us now, trying to understand how we think. They won't underestimate humans again. That's actually good, Doha said. If they study us, they'll realize attacking Earth is too costly. We've bought ourselves time, maybe decades before anyone tries again. Taeyang made a decision. We're not going to wait decades wondering when the next attack will come. We're going to be ready. Doha, I want similar defensive systems installed around every major human colony. Minho, train more engineers in trap design and deployment. Yuna, expand your intelligence network. I want to know what every alien species in this sector is planning. And the fleet? Jihu asked. We rebuild. Better ships. New weapons. We learn from this victory. But we don't become arrogant like the Valtru. We stay humble. We stay clever. We survive. 1 month after the battle, a memorial was built on Mars Station. It was a simple wall with the names of everyone who died in the defense of Earth. 6,520 names. Captain Nari stood before it, reading the names quietly. She found the names of the crew members she had lost from the Indomitable. Young people who had trusted her leadership, who had volunteered knowing they might die. She touched their names gently. They died for something that mattered, Jihu said, standing beside her. That has to count for something. It does. But I still wish they were alive. They stood in silence for a while. Other officers came to pay respects. Civilians, too. The memorial became a place of mourning but also of pride. These people had saved humanity. In Earth's government chambers, politicians debated what to do next. Some wanted to hide, to pull humanity's colonies back to avoid attracting more attention. Others wanted to expand aggressively to show strength. Admiral Taeyang was called to testify before the Defense Committee. What is your recommendation, Admiral? The committee chair asked. We fortify, Taeyang said simply. We make every human colony a potential trap. We develop weapons that use our creativity rather than trying to match alien technology. We build a network of allies among other species who fear the big empires. And we make sure that anyone who attacks humanity knows they're walking into a fight they can't win. Won't that make us seem aggressive? No, it will make us seem dangerous. There's a difference. Aggressive species attack others. Dangerous species make attacking them a terrible idea. We need to be the second one. The committee approved his plans. Funding was allocated. New defensive systems were designed. The Helios Corridor became a model that was copied throughout human space. 6 months after the battle, something unexpected happened. An alien ship approached Mars Station. It wasn't Valtru. It was from a species called the Dendari, a small civilization that had been threatened by Valtru expansion for years. The Dendari ambassador met with Admiral Taeyang. She was a tall, thin creature with 4 arms and kind eyes. We heard what you did to the Valtru fleet, she said through a translator device. It was magnificent, brilliant. You defeated them completely using nothing but rocks and cleverness. We did what we had to do, Taeyang replied. They gave us no choice. Other species are talking about it. The Valtru are feared throughout this sector. They've conquered many worlds. But you stopped them with total success. You gave hope to everyone else who fears the great empires. What do you want from us? Taeyang asked directly. Alliance, friendship, we can share intelligence about threats. Trade information about technology. Support each other. The Valtru won't be the last empire that looks at smaller civilizations as prey. Together, we can make attacking any of us too costly to consider. Taeyang thought about it. Humanity had been alone in the galaxy, struggling to survive, but maybe that was changing. I'll speak to my government, he said, but personally I think we'd welcome friends. 1 year after the battle, Captain Nari received a promotion. She was now Admiral Nari, in charge of Mars' defense fleet. Her first order was to personally visit the Helios corridor. Her ship approached the debris field slowly. The corridor had been partially cleared, but much of the wreckage remained. It served as a warning to anyone who passed through. This is what happens when you attack humanity. Sensors are picking up debris signatures from 317 ships, her tactical officer reported. All Valtru design, all destroyed. Nari looked out the viewport at the field of broken metal and shattered rock. A year ago, this had been a desperate gamble. Now it was history, the place where humanity proved it could defend itself. Record everything, she ordered. Every piece of wreckage. Every asteroid fragment. I want complete documentation. Future generations need to know what happened here. As her ship moved through the corridor, Nari thought about the Valtru commander who had led the invasion. He had been so certain of victory, so confident in his superiority. That arrogance had killed him and everyone under his command.